Listen, as far as I can tell, Tom Cruise has like one purpose in his life, and that's to entertain you and me. Like, that's it. That's the only reason he exists. Tom is back with a new Mission Impossible. That movie's in theaters today. So today on the show, does Mission Impossible 7 deliver? Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. I am so ready. I am so ready to talk about this. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, starts like this.
Our lives are the sum of our choices. And we cannot escape the past. Ethan, this mission of yours is gonna cost you dearly.
That is a bit of the trailer for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. Tom Cruise is back. He's playing Secret Agent Ethan Hunt. There is a plot to this movie. I don't know what that plot is because I don't go to this movie for plot whatsoever. There are big action sequences. There are massive stunts. There's the knowledge that the stunts are done by the man himself. That's what I show up for. There's a bunch of people gathered around this Commotion table who are bursting to talk about Tom Cruise and bursting to talk about Mission Impossible. Rad Simonpillai, Sarah Hagi, Cassie, what's going on, everybody?
What's going on?
What is going on?
Just like from the moment that the trailer started playing, y'all had this big smiles on your faces because you're like, wow, Tom Cruise, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, well, look, every Mission Impossible movie is just a high art. Okay,
Yeah.
this is a franchise that never fails. So
Yes.
you know.
It honestly is hard to sometimes remember that this is a franchise that's been going on since 1996. It's been 27 years of Ethan Hunt. I'm still giddy to talk about a Mission Impossible movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that is an amazing feat. We're going to talk about it in a moment, but maybe Rad, we'll start with this. What is Ethan Hunt up to in Mission Impossible 7?
Yeah, so this movie has Ethan Hunt squaring up on artificial intelligence, okay? So,
Timely.
Exactly. And look, I mean, that what that is that gives you this wonderful setup where, you got these spies whose job it is to know everything and keep everything in secret facing off against an entity. It's actually called the Entity that knows everyone's secrets, right? And what that also does is by him fighting kind of this futuristic force, you get just on a practical level, the Ethan Hunt and his gang kind of going back into the past, like receding into the past. They go more analog. Like the first cassette, the first mission they get in this movie is an analog cassette tape, right?
That's right.
And you get a lot of throwbacks to, it's an old Russian submarine. And what I love about this receding into the past, because then what this movie does is it goes back to the original movie. You get a lot of callbacks to the original, which is my favorite. So one of them being Henry Czerny. The Toronto actor Henry Czerny plays Kittredge, the original IMF boss. He's returning. You get a finale on a train, just like the original. And all of that, what that does is you have this movie that on the one hand, stylistically, it's bringing you back to the original, which is, I think, still the best, but then bringing kind of the unrelenting action and big set pieces of the latter movies. And it's all packaged into one.
Cassie, what about you? What do you think of the Mission
I
Impossible
loved
7?
it.
Tell
I
me
had
more.
such a good time. It was 3 hours long. I didn't even have to go pee. It was so good. And like you said, no idea what the plot is. I actually think it is the exact same plot as Fast 10, which I thought was very funny. But I think this movie defies that. I think it's such a compliment that this movie is so good that it can reuse another blockbuster's plot and make no sense. And still you're just like, but Tom Cruise, he jumps off a freaking cliff.
Look, there's a key. They're trying to get the key. I don't know what the key does. We're not really sure. It does not matter to me, Sarah Hagi, because I'm in it for Tom Cruise. What about you?
I mean, I have to echo what everyone said. It is I watch these movies over and over again, could not tell you an actual plot point. I could not tell you what anything means. I'm like, AI bad, Tom Cruise good. And it just works. And he's so charming. The charm is up to the beginning. And honestly, this is the only franchise where you could fight over, any of these 7 movies, let's just say 6, could be the best one of the whole franchise. It's it's just banger after banger. It's summer blockbuster. It delivers. I was delighted.
I mean, there's something to be said about the fact, Rad, that Mission Impossible is like the only franchise committed to outdo itself every single time that they go on to the next one. Because like a really big part of the marketing campaign is like, look at the really big stunts we had to do this time. Do you think that's why people keep returning to this franchise?
I mean, I don't know. I think like there's a general entertainment level, and if you took away a stunt, I don't think I don't think people are not going to turn out for that, right? But I think part of that is just like a conflation of Tom Cruise's ego in that like we always have to go bigger, we always have to make sure that we are giving the audience. They know that the Tom Cruise's brand as the last great movie star, as a reliable entertainment, he wants you to know that he is always going to go out of his way and deliver that. And then also in terms of the really big stunts, I mean, he's fighting a war to save cinemas. So he wants to make sure you have a theatrical experience. You want to come to the theater to see something where if he's diving off a cliff, you have a reason to see that on the big screen. So that's kind of part and parcel with this package.
So to that end, I actually want to play a clip. Take a listen to this.
Pretty much the biggest stunt in cinema history. Tom Cruise just rode a motorcycle off a cliff 6 times today.
It is just Sarah Hagi under her breath, like, "Oh my god!" Listen, there was this behind the scenes video that was released, and at first you see Tom Cruise riding a motorcycle off a cliff, and then like you hold your breath as you watch him sort of fall, and then his parachute fires and everyone celebrates, and then you hear Tom Cruise go, "Actually, we need to do it again." And then he does that stunt 6 times, Cassie, which is nuts. Like, these are shots that could have very easily been gotten through some kind of CGI, through some kind of green screen, but he doesn't. And I think there's something to be said about Tom Cruise being the person to do these stunts. Do you think knowing that Tom Cruise puts his life literally on the line for these movies, do you think that changes the way you connect to the movie?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also add that he's old now. And that
He's 60 years old,
elevates it for me.
Yeah.
You watch that clip. I mean, I spent all day watching that cliff clip, the CGI movie version and the one that he did. It's like basically exactly the same anyway. Yeah. It's so, and he jumps off of the cliff and I'm a simple audience member. What I want is crazy people risking their lives. That's just like from the dawn of time, like gladiator games, like that's what I want. And he delivers.
Well, I was going to say, Hagi, like I feel like one of the marketing points of, I think it was Mission Impossible 5, maybe it was 6, which is when he jumps from one building to the other and he breaks his foot, right?
He breaks his ankle.
He breaks his ankle, but then he keeps running, and that's the shot that they keep in the movie. Like, this has become like an age-defying exercise at this point.
Yes. I mean, I think we have to take into consideration he's not like us. He's not he's not a regular human being. He's like, yes, technically 60 years old. Physically, with all the stuff he has at his disposal, he's probably like a cool 40 years old.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, I mean, it is just crazy that, you know, the thing about Tom Cruise is that like, he's 100%. Like, he has one function, and it is movie star, and it is give audience what they want, and he's going to do it no matter what. I don't think, like, the crazy part about those stunts also is, you know, those clips were going around when it first came out. I mean, when those clips first came out, and, you know, when you watch the movie, it's even crazier somehow. You think you know, and then you watch the movie, and you're like, no, this is a lot crazier.
Yeah. Yeah, like the way that shot ends up landing is even crazier in the having seen several times that clip of him jumping off a cliff 6 times, it's still somehow you watch it and it still takes your breath away. There's something about that. Rad, you mentioned that Tom Cruise is engaged in this larger fight to save cinema, and I think that's important to talk about because he's the guy who says, I'm not going to do a streaming movie. He's the guy who's like, Netflix can park some kind of large money truck in front of him, and he'll be like, no, like my movies are meant to be seen in the theater. That's primarily the thing that I do. As part of the big promo push for this movie, he's been sort of, you know, photographed holding up the photos of him holding up the tickets for Oppenheimer and Barbie because he's trying to say, hey, go to the theater. Stop seeing movies at home. Why do you think he's championing this fight so much?
Well, first of all, I think him holding up the tickets to Oppenheimer is also sort of a PR move because he was initially at war with Oppenheimer over IMAX screens.
Yes,
that's so right. Like they were like, no, it's
there's
all
a limited
here.
number of screens.
But the thing is, he has genuinely been fighting this fight to save theaters and save the big screen experience, and because again, that goes with his whole old school movie star mentality. If I am the last great movie star, I need to be the one that is going to fight to keep theaters alive, to keep this experience alive. And I love how it's holistically part of the narratives in his movies. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, in this movie, the bad guy is AI. like literally the threat to movies. He hates CGI. He hates making green screen monstrosity. So he's diving off cliffs for real to save the movies because it's all about real actors, real stunts, real humanity making, not an algorithm dictating what the movie is. I am Tom Cruise. I'm going to do it. And, you know, this has been part of his mission even with the last Top Gun movie. Remember the Top Gun Maverick? Part of the plot was we need real pilots piloting in real canyons, not drone pilots, right?
Yeah.
So his whole thing is, you know, I was about to swear, but middle finger up, middle finger up to AI and algorithms and green screen. Let's do it all for real actors, real script writing, and real stunts.
Right.
And even a sleight of hand, a practical sleight of hand. Like, remember where he does the magic trick with the key?
Oh, do I ever remember?
Oh, yeah, guys. There's some magic in this movie.
But even that, he's like, I'm doing it for real. No digital stunts. This key's not gonna magically disappear.
Teach me how to do
with
this.
Penn and Teller. You're doing this trick, guys.
But that's like taking it back to the OG cinema. Like, I am the sleight of hand is what I do.
I was going to say, Hagi, to me, it kind of feels like there's this moment. There's something about when you sit down for a Tom Cruise movie now. I think it's happened in the last 3 Tom Cruise movies in theaters, where there's like a little message that comes up and Tom goes, hey, you sitting there in the movie theater, thanks for seeing this in a movie theater. Why do you think this means so much to him?
Because it makes me feel good. I think, you know, actually, I feel like he was kind of the first to really do that. And then I feel like post, you know, COVID lockdowns and COVID measures, when people were going to cinemas again, you notice a lot more directors doing that. Like M. Night Shyamalan did that for Old. Like, there was a few that I noticed.
Yeah.
And I really think it's to show people like, hey, you can watch movies at home. You can watch movies however you want, but nothing will replicate this experience of sitting in a theater, which it is true for movies like this. It's true for most movies, you know, like you're not distracted. Like, no matter what, if you're home, you will be distracted. You won't be fully in. The sound won't be as the director wanted it to be, you know, like you're getting the experience you're supposed to have.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest part of it is just like this experience cannot be replicated no matter how hard we try.
Yeah.
I think especially the movies that are this big, that are, you know, action-oriented, that really elicit reaction from you. I think the experience of being in a theater, being in an audience, it's community building in a way that movies used to bring people together, that you share the same experiences, that you collectively have a reaction. The last hour of that movie, I was gasping the entire movie.
I saw a late screening of that movie, and so I was like getting like a little tired 2 hours in, and then the last hour started, and my whole body was like, no, we need to wake up for this. Something has shifted in the energy, and you know, and there's something. Just the onslaught of that last hour is truly remarkable. We're going to close on this topic on saying, hey, he's given us 7 of these movies. Is Dead Reckoning Part 1 in your top 3? Rad, I'll start with you.
It is. It's right after the original and Rogue Nation.
Rogue Nation. What number is Rogue Nation?
5.
Yeah, you can't tell me the subtitles, man. I don't remember anything. Hagi, is this top 3?
Definitely top 3. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, wow. Do you know where in top 3? Or we don't know yet.
I think it might be 2. I think I liked Ghost Protocol more just because
6?
That's 4.
Okay.
Because there was more like them hanging out, which I like. I like when they get to be friends.
Simon Pegg's
It's
character.
more of a comedy.
It's more of a collective like experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like we're talking about like 0.2 difference.
Yeah, big hangout guy over here, Sarah Hagi. What about you, Cassie?
I think so. My favorite was the third one, though, where they kidnap his wife. Oh, I think stakes are high. Everyone's and then he resuscitates her at the end with the metal thing. Defies science.
This is the best part. Is that like we don't really remember the plots of these movies. We just remember the vibes that they give us.
Or the stunt.
Hoffman as the bad guy.
Sure. I remember 2 having Limp Bizkit in the soundtrack, and like that was a big moment for me.
You don't remember the John Woo Doves?
I think that is going to close it for us on Mission Impossible. Although I think we're kind of all in agreement, be like, you should go see this, but like, don't wait to streaming. I feel like this is like a thing you experience in the theater.
You gotta go in the theater.
Okay, we're gonna shift gears. Let's take a listen to this.
Look at me, look at me, look at me now. Guess who's going back to the motherland?
It's a big deal, going to your birth country.
We used to talk about it all the time when we were little, remember? We can't get caught with drugs in China. We'll get jailed for life.
I don't believe these girls are sinners.
Girls, show them.
What are we supposed to show?
You're a fan of Cardi B, right?
Yeah. Is she here?
Oh boy, that is from a new comedy. It's called Joyride. Rad, would you do the honors of telling us what it's about?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a raunchy R-rated comedy, a hangout comedy in the vein of like Hangover and Girls Trip. But this one is led by Ashley Park and Sherry Cola, where Ashley Park plays a lawyer who turns her business trip to Beijing into a girls trip with her homies that then detours into a search for the mother who put her up for an adoption, as her biological mother who put her up for adoption when she was a child. So a lot going on there, but, you know, a lot of just threading for just outrageous scenes with drugs and everything, and animals, you can name it.
And a lot of hijinks.
A lot of hijinks,
as you will.
yes.
So Joyride is the directorial debut from Adele Dim. Adele wrote Crazy Rich Asians, also co-wrote the Disney movie Raya the Last Dragon. Cassie, let's talk about Joyride, man. What do you think of it?
I loved it.
Okay, let's go.
Especially for a movie that's got Asian representation. Listen, if it was bad, I would take it to my grave. You know, you would never hear me admit that. But you do watch it and you're like, oh, thank God it's good. I don't have to lie out my ass.
Well, when you start to think about like the chemistry of these leads, like Ashley Park, Sherry Cola, Stephanie Hsu, Sabrina Wu. What do you think of the chemistry between them? Did it work?
I think it was great. I think it was, I love that this is a movie that shows that so many different people can have chemistry. They're so different. They're also, they kind of defy a lot of comedy stereotypes that we're already used to. They all have different body types, and they defy just a lot of expectations that you have of who should get along and who can be friends and who can have good chemistry and jokes together. And they really make it work. And they also use all relatively new talent, which I'm always a fan of.
What about you, Sarah? Like, this movie it's a pretty raunchy movie, which might not work for everyone. Did it work for you?
Yeah, you know, the thing about this movie is that you watch it and you know exactly what you're going to get in a way, like of these kind of raunchy comedies. You know what beats it's going to hit. You know when the plot's going to go this way, when they're going to introduce the drugs, when they're going to, you know, like, oh, this is going to be the scene where they're high. This is going to be this. And
familiar beats,
very familiar beats of, you know, comedies that we've seen before, but mostly with white dudes. And I think it really works because, again, they just have such great chemistry. They're all so funny, and like no one seemed to have like an ego when doing these silly things. Like, it was like gross and weird and embarrassing, and it was just like it worked because they really gave it their all.
Cassie, we were talking before we started rolling about like the descriptor of this movie as a raunchy movie, because both you and I had the reaction of like, well, it wasn't that raunchy.
Right.
But then we started recalling some of the plot details and some of the some of the shots that they have in this movie, and you go like, actually, yeah, that is pretty raunchy. Do you think we're kind of like desensitized to the raunchy comedy at this point?
I mean, yes, I think that's undeniable that we are as a society, definitely. But I think that the nice thing about this movie in particular, which a lot of other raunchy comedies don't necessarily hit, is I think that it has a very wholesome underlying story that really grounds all the raunchiness, and it gives those characters kind of a point of view on them that they're not just doing these things to be gross, whereas it serves a function in their character development in the plot that's moving forward.
Well, I was going to say, Rad, it's like this and also the Jennifer Lawrence movie, No Hard Feelings. Is the raunchy comedy suddenly back? Is that what I'm looking at here?
I feel like the R-rated raunchy comedies in the post-Hangover Girl Trip era, like that is the only thing that people feel might get people back into theaters again for comedy. Because if you think about it, regular rom-coms and stuff are now all in the streaming market. So this is like the last-ditch effort of, let's get a bunch of rowdy 18 to 30-year-olds who want to drink and watch a movie in the theater and give them that.
I will say, like, that was the vibe of my screening. Like, it was like 7:30 or 8 p.m. of a screening, and then everyone was just like a little too loose and laughing quite loudly. But that was kind of the best part of it. Rad, we should say Joyride made headlines because one particular review. I like that Hagi already knows.
I think Hagi's going to have to tag team this with me.
All right, let's talk about the review that went viral. One of you tell me what happened.
We should first talk about where the review came from.
Go off.
Okay,
let's go.
So, and Sarah, jump in at any point. But so the reviewer in question, he goes by the moniker Lights Camera Jackson. And Lights Camera Jackson came into prominence because he was a 10-year-old who showed up on CBS reviewing movies, talking about how
cute.
Inception. Yeah, very cute.
That's sweet.
The 10-year-old can't understand what's going on with Inception. But he's basically the gimmick that nobody put down, is what happened.
Oh,
and so
wow.
now
It
he's
just
like
kept happening.
Now he's in his 20s.
way past his prime of ever being cute, even if he was. But I will say the thing.
But wait, what happened here though?
What happened here was he tweeted, this movie was too raunchy. It was anti-white. It was this.
Anti-white.
Yeah,
it objectifies men and targets white people.
Which, by the way, is a badge of honor for this movie.
It was the
Put that on the
quote
promotional poster.
Yeah. It was the one quote that got me into that theater.
I do think there's like a bit of an undue amount of attention it got, and I was like, do not give someone like this, not like ignore it, don't give him power, but also it's like, the fact that this one nobody guy who, again, doesn't even have a large following on any of the platforms he's on, got this much attention for saying that gets me so angry because it's like there's so much more, like people are so into this movie and so happy about it that it's like what he says doesn't matter. Like, it just got
It's not like a meaningful review.
It's not a meaningful he's not a meaningful person by any means. Like, he doesn't really matter in the scope of film criticism. And
Lord, let me never see the day where Sarah Hagi says he doesn't really matter. Oh my God.
I never want to be described that way. Absolutely.
Never.
No.
Okay, Rad, go ahead.
No, I mean, I was going to say, but what he said was, and the reason why it's such a badge of honor is like, okay, here's this like a white guy clearly defined by his white fragility saying, oh, this movie's raunchy for raunchy's sake. Like, yeah, it's great to have Asian characters who can own their raunchiness and not be the object of the Orientalist gaze. And he's like, oh, it objectifies men. It's like, that's wonderful. Like, we should have more comedies that objectify men. And it targets white fragility. Like, that is exactly what we should be thriving for in all the new comedies.
But you know what I think about that, honestly? I feel like it's so joyful that even as somebody criticizing the movie, they really got it. They really got the movie, which I think is like undeniable.
Well, it's also just like really misses the heart of this movie because like a lot of comedies don't need to have heart. They're not about having sort of an emotional story at its core. This movie does, and it really lands that emotional core really well. So the idea that that's your only takeaway from that movie feels like it's like really doing it a disservice. Last word to you, Cassie, on this. I mentioned that it's Adele Lim's directorial debut. Before signing this, she turned down working on Crazy Rich Asians 2. Yeah, over like a disparity between in terms of pay between her and the co-writer, who is white and a man, we should say. How do you think Joyride sets her up in terms of like her future career?
First of all, I think great. But I think, first of all, that pay disparity thing was such a big deal. The co-writer for Crazy Rich Asians was a white man, and their pay disparity for the sequel, of which, they equally share in
writing.
Definitely in writing, but in the success of the first one, is that pay disparity was like 1 to 10, I think. She got 10% of what he was offered. And I think not only, as her in particular, but as a woman in the industry, as a woman of color in the industry, I think showing that you can turn down opportunities like that and go make your own, especially with new talent and upcoming talent, and just know that you're not shackled to one specific movie or one specific person to give you those opportunities, I think is really powerful for the entire industry.
Honestly, I gotta say, between Joyride and how well it's being received by people, between Mission Impossible, this marketing campaign for Barbie and Oppenheimer that's been just consuming every drop of airwaves that there's been around, kind of feels like the movies are back. Are the movies back, Rad?
For now, let's see if we can sustain it. I mean, we're in a moment. Make it last. It's unfortunate that all of these have to come at the same time and squeeze each other out at the theaters. Like, spread it out.
I can't remember a summer that's been this stacked in a while. That's for sure. Like, I mean, it definitely feels like summer movies are back. Like last year, I feel like I was like, oh, I already saw this. I already saw this. I already saw this. And now I'm like, oh, there's so many things I can see with my friends.
And notice that none of these movies we're talking about have either the Marvel or the DC label on them.
Rad says, pumping his fist in the air.
I like that they're all coming out this summer. I think it feels like there's such a tidal wave of really good movies, and everyone's getting hyped about it. And I think that that's going to continue the hype past the summer, hopefully.
Feels like summer, baby. That's what it feels like. Okay, Cassie Cow, Sarah Hagi, Rad Simonpillai. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. This was the best.
Thank you.
Of course, Cassie is a comedian and TV writer. Sarah Hagi co-hosts a podcast called Scamfluencers, and Rad Simonpillai is a film critic for CBC and CTV's Your Morning. Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Joyride are both in theaters now. You should do it. You should go see them.
Ready? 1. You will do this 4 times with the left, 4 with the right, then 8 times with both, then repeat.
That is it for our show today. What you're hearing right now is Body Moving, Beastie Boys. That is from Hello Nasty, an album that is about to turn 25. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to have a wide-ranging conversation with the Beasties. Please be there for that, because I'm going to be here, and I hope to see you then.